Welcome to Why I Believe on my road to hope and peace. We are your hosts, James and Jody Evanson, and we are thrilled to welcome Olympic silver medalist MyKayla Skinner with us tonight. She is accompanied by her husband, Jonas Harmer, and we are very grateful that they're here with us tonight. This broadcast is live, so we invite you to share, put questions on the chat, and ask any questions you'd like with MyKayla tonight, and we will have a wonderful experience with her.
Thanks. I'm going to try to read off her long list of accomplishments for you. MyKayla Skinner is an American gymnast. She competed in the 2014 World Championships, where she contributed to the Team USA's gold medal, also winning an individual bronze medal on the vault. She won 11 total medals at the USA National Championship during her senior career. She competed for the University of Utah's gymnastics team and was a two-time NCAA champion. She was an alternate for the 2016 Olympic team, and in 2021 she competed in the Tokyo Olympics as an individual gymnast and won a silver medal on the vault.
So, MyKayla, we would just love to turn this time over to you and tell us about your story about choosing and becoming an Olympic gymnast.
Well, there's so many things to my story. So I started gymnastics when I was 5. So Olympics didn't really become a big deal to me until I was 13. I didn't really know what it took to become an Olympian. I had to switch gyms, and so I decided to go to Desert Lights when I was 13 years old. And my first week there, I was just doing crazy things, and my coach was like, you know what, we want to put her into the elite program. We want to start her on the Olympic route. And even then, I still didn't know what it took. I was just like, oh, I just get to do more flips and have harder routines. And at the age of 13, I started training 7 hours a day, 42 hours a week. So it was just craziness. I had to commit, and I had to miss a ton of things. I had to not go to church activities. I couldn't be with my nieces and nephews, and just missing out on vacations and just family things, which was super hard. But that was kind of when I finally was like, I think I could do the Olympics. Like, I think I know what it takes, and I want to go all in. And so I just took it one day at a time and was able to, compete in world championships, make the national team. When I was actually, so I started gym when I was 5, and I skipped levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, competed level 5, and then went level 6, competed 7, did 2 years of level 8. And at 2 years of level 8, my coaches at my club gym were like, hey, MyKayla needs to switch gym. She has too much talent. We can't take her any further. So when I went to Desert Lights, I started out as a level 9, and then competed 1 meet 9, went level 10, which is kind of like where you go to get a college scholarship. And
how old were you at that time?
I was 13. So this was when I was 13, yeah. So when I went to Desert Lights. And so I did 1 meet level 9, went level 10, and made junior international elite all in 1 year, which I don't think anybody's ever done, which is crazy. So junior international elite they have a junior team and a senior team, and that's kind of like the Olympic route. And I actually went to JO Nationals that year as well and won vault, which was really cool. So yeah, it was just crazy because like you get to level 10 and you're kind of like, do I want to do college? Like, what do I want to do? There's so many choices to take, but then I decided to pursue elite gymnastics, and I actually verbally committed my freshman year of high school to the University of Utah. So just a whole bunch of craziness, but 13, that's when it really hit me, where I was like, I think this is real. Because when you're a little kid, you sit there and you watch the Olympics. Like, I loved watching Carly Patterson, Sean, and Nastia. Like, they were my role models, but you just never really know, like, what you have to do to get there, It's so much hard work, so much dedication, and I had to do it at such a young age, which was crazy. But, yeah, 13.
So you told us that there was a moment where you really didn't want to go to practice.
Yeah.
Tell us about that mind switch. And that
every day.
even every day. But when I was a kid, I just wanted to play. I wanted to be with my family and do all the fun things. And even at such a young age, I was still going like 4 hours a day. So it was still a lot of gymnastics. And my mom actually pulled me out. So we moved to Utah when I was 6 and 7. And I did gym at Olympus for 2 years here in Utah. And then my dad got transferred back to Arizona for work, and so my mom actually pulled me out for a year just because I just didn't want to do it. It was so weird. I was so good at it, and like I loved it, but it was just too much at such a young age. And so my mom was actually watching Carly Patterson in the Olympics during that time when I was off, and she just had this overwhelming feeling that I need to put MyKayla back into gymnastics. And so she put me back in, and still didn't like it, but I was like, but I want to go to the Olympics. And so kind of once I like got back into it, and then once I went to Desert Lights, I was like, okay, I do like gymnastics. It's going to be a hard, long journey, but this is just what it takes to be an Olympian, so I'm going to do it, whatever it takes.
So tell us about that. You've had 2 Olympic experiences, right?
Yes.
2016 and 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Share us a little bit about those experiences.
Yeah, so at Olympic trials, so every year we have classics and championships, and classics is kind of like a meet where we kind of just like get into the groove of things for the season, do our new routines, get them under our belt before we go to championships. And then championships is a 2-day competition, and then that's where they name the national team. So then you go and represent and compete internationally and do all the cool stuff. And so I had made the national team, and then only the national team every year during the Olympic year makes it to Olympic trials. So usually that can be like 10, 12, maybe 15 girls, so not very many. And in 2016, it's a 2-day competition as well. At Olympic trials, I placed 4th in the all-around. And, they went and announced the Olympic team, and we were all sitting back in a room waiting for the Olympic coach and the national team staff to decide who it was going to be. And I just remember, I did everything that I could to make this Olympic team. And I placed 4th in the all-around, and technically they're supposed to take the top 5 because it was a 5-man team. And I just remember sitting back there, hoping they were going to put me on. And I texted my sister Chelsea. They were out in the arena up in the stands. And I was just like, do you think I'm going to make it? And, of course, they're telling me, I don't know. You'll just have to see. We're rooting for you. You might make it. We don't know, And so I'm sitting there, and I just had that overwhelming feeling, you're not going to make it. I just kind of, knew. And so they come out, and then they start announcing the Olympic team. And they ended up taking 7th and 8th, and then putting 4th and 5th as alternates. And so, of course, I'm crying, but it wasn't, tears of joy. It was tears of sadness. And, I worked so hard for this. How could they do that to me? And so, of course, there's a lot of politics involved in gymnastics. And so, anyway, I just went home, and I was like, you know what? Even though I'm an alternate, you never know what can happen. So I changed my mindset, and I worked really hard. We left for Tokyo, and, Rio, sorry, stepping ahead. But so we were in Rio, and it was brutal. Being an alternate, no one just really understands what it's like. And in gymnastics, we're gone for a month, and we train every single day, so we don't get any days off. And our day off is a 1-day practice. So normally we have 2-a-day practices, and then on our days off, it's a 1-day practice. So it's just very, very hard. And I just remember crying every single night just because it was I wanted to be on that team so badly. And then there were so many things going on, and they kept saying that they were going to pull me in, and then they wouldn't pull me in. And then they're like, but we're going to put MyKayla in, so make sure she's ready, make sure she's doing what she needs to do, just because there's issues going on with some of the other girls. And so anyway, it was really hard. And it was really hard to stay positive and motivated. But with my family and my friends, just cheering me on, supporting me every single day, I was just kind of able to push through it. And then once I got home, I was just kind of you know what, kind of over elite gymnastics, because I kind of had to make that decision. Am I going to go to college, or am I going to train for the next Olympics? And I was like, I don't want to do it. I want to go to college. And I had prayed about it, and I just felt like I needed to go and get my degree. And so I went to college and competed at the University of Utah for 3 years. And then my freshman year, I just had so much fun, and I was like, wow, this is what gymnastics is supposed to be like. It's not so miserable after all. And anyway, so I was like, I am never doing elite gymnastics again. I don't think I'm going to go back and train for the next Olympics. And then my junior year came around, and all of a sudden I'm like, I think I want to go again. So I also had prayed again, and just, had that feeling this is what I'm supposed to do. I need to go out there and try one more time. And I just felt like I couldn't give up yet. I was like, if I'm still doing really hard skills in college, I can do them in elite and then add my routines in. And anyway, I went back and moved to Arizona, and it was really funny because Jonas's mom was like, oh yeah, go back and train for the Olympics. It'll be so easy. You got this. And I'm like, you don't know what it's like.
Yeah,
Like, it's
no
a whole
idea.
different ball game. Like, it is hard. And so I just remember, like, going back into the gym. And when I first went back to Arizona, I was, like, going to take a couple days because we had just gotten done with college season. And my coach calls me, and I'm at the pool. She's like, you know what? Like, you have to be ready in 3 months. So she's like, the sooner you can come into the gym, the better. So then the next day I went into the gym, started doing stuff, started playing around, seeing, like, what I could do again. And I was able to get all my routines put together in 3 months. And I competed at classics. And it was a little rough, but I did pretty good. And then we had championships. So I had to make the national team again. I got, like, 8th. So that was, like, I was like, okay, like, I can do this, you know, like, for coming back in 3 months, I did so well. And then world championships, we have every single year except the Olympic year. So it's kind of just as big as the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, like, wasn't my goal. My goal was the Olympics. And so Tom, the Olympic coach, was like, you know what, just have MyKayla come to world selection camp. And I was kind of like, seriously? Like, I don't want to do that. Like, the Olympics is my goal. I need to train for that. And he's like, well, MyKayla hasn't competed internationally in 3 years. Let's get another meet under her belt.
Mm.
So trained for 2 weeks, went to world selection camp. It was a 2-day competition at camp, and I got 4th in the all-around. And so we get over to Germany, and we're training for a couple weeks, and it was like 2 days before prelims, and Tom was like waiting up to then to announce the alternate. And so I was feeling really good because, like, I got 4th at world selection camp. They take 6, and I was hitting all my routines every practice, doing really good. And he comes up to me 2 days before and says, I'm sorry, but we're going to make you the alternate. And so I was like, again, you know? And so I just remember, like, bawling the second he told me because I was just, like, so devastated. And then Simone pulled me into the bathroom, and she was just, like, calming me down. And she was like, you know what? Like, you weren't even planning on doing worlds. Like, you made it this far. Like, that's such an accomplishment, you know? And I'm like, I know, but it still sucks, you know? Like, it's hard to put in all that work and then to be an alternate again. And I was an alternate in 2015 Worlds. And there was a lot of politics involved with that. So that's a whole nother story. So it was like 3 times, you know? And I was like, it better not happen at the Olympics, you know? And I was going back to train. So anyway, I thought, you know what, Simone's right. Like, I deserve to be here, even though I don't get to compete. Like, I wasn't even expecting to be at Worlds, so I just made it positive and had a great attitude and was just there for the team. And I got to be out on the floor with them, and it was really nice because everybody was like, MyKayla, you deserve to compete, and, like, we're so grateful that you're here to support us and cheer us on. So kind of made it a little bit better. And then, of course, you know, we get back and COVID, you know, so it was just like, is this really happening right now, you know, because I only was hoping to train for a year just because, you know, elite gymnastics is so hard, and I was like, I have 1 year to do this, like, I can do that. And we had just gotten married right when I came back from Worlds, and we were planning the wedding, so there was, like, just a bunch of things happening all at once, so that was really cool. And then, like, came home from Worlds, we got married, and then the postponement happened, and then all the craziness from there. But a little bit about the Olympic journey. So it was just crazy. So I kind of had, like, a bone spur issue when I was in college, and they thought it was my Achilles tendon. And so, of course, I took, like, 3 meets off where I didn't do tumbling, so I didn't do floor. And I was able to, like, get through the rest of the season. And then, like, I started, you know, I came back into elite gymnastics, and I was kind of plugging away, and it hurt, but it was, like, doable. And then for some reason, like, during COVID, I still got to go into the gym and train. In Arizona, they let us do that, which was really nice. So I was in by myself, and that was really, really hard, but also kind of exciting because I was like, I get to learn all these new skills that I wouldn't have had time for, you know, and add up my difficulty, which I was really excited for. And as I was training and doing all this stuff, I think my body was just exhausted. And so my Achilles started hurting again. And so my coach was like, let's take 2 weeks off. And so I did that because I could, like, barely walk. And so after 2 weeks, I kind of started doing stuff again, and I just, like, could not put pressure on it. So we went into the doctor. They said I had a huge bone spur on the back of my Achilles tendon, so it was, like, rubbing in between there. And anyway, so we were like, do we do surgery to, like, shave it down? Like, what do we do? And he's like, well, my coach was like, we don't have time for that. So we decided not to shave it down. He's like, you were probably born this way, or it just developed through gymnastics. So he's like, your body's used to it. It's just inflammation and all the stuff. So We did a PRP injection. We did shockwave therapy, which was horrible. Hurt so bad. I don't recommend it, but it helped, but it was horrible. And then it was kind of like, like with the Olympics being postponed, it was just like, it was so like devastating. And then to like be injured, but I was like, I guess if I'm injured, this is the time to be injured, because we have that extra time. But then like as it started going, like it had been a couple weeks, and then by the time I just started to come back, I got hit with COVID. And so I got really, really sick. Like I felt like I was on my deathbed. I was sick for 3 weeks, and then my coach was like, you know what, like once you come back in, we'll take it slow. I went in for 3 days. This was like right before New Year's. And it was like on a Sunday. I'd gone to church, and Jonas and I were eating dinner, and I was just like, it just like hit me. I was like, I just am not feeling good. And he's like, you're fine. You're probably just exhausted because you started going back to gym. I'm like, I'm feeling sick. Like, I think I got COVID round 2. And so anyway, he was leaving for work for like 2 weeks the next day. So the next day he leaves, and I'm sitting at home bawling because I'm like, I got to go to practice, and I'm way behind, and I'm just struggling. And so I go to my mom's house, and we sit down, we say a little prayer, and my mom's like, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm going to call your coaches right now. You're going to get back into the gym, and we're just going to make it work. It's okay. Like, take your time. So I go to the gym, and my coach Bob texts my temperature because we were doing that still, and he checked it 3 times, and he's like, you need to go home. You have a really high fever. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I can't miss more gym. So of course I get to my car, and I'm just bawling, and I call my sister, and I'm like, Chelsea, like, there's something wrong. And so she's like, well, tell me your symptoms. Like, what are you feeling like? She goes, go to the hospital. You have pneumonia. So I get home. My parents rushed me to the hospital. I had pneumonia, but thankfully they caught it early enough. And so they just gave me some IVs, and I didn't have to spend the night in the hospital, which was nice because I was in there by myself. And I was like, this is horrible. Like, I couldn't imagine what, like, the world was going through. Like, being in there for 6 hours was rough. And so anyway, it was hard because Jonas was gone, and so then I had to stay with my parents. And anyway, I took another 10 days off of gym, which was not bad, could have been worse. But then I finally started going into the gym again, and I wanted to give up. I was like, why am I doing this? Why did I stay? I could have just gone to college and finished school, and I was just so frustrated. And I just was like, you know what, like, I can do this. So I changed my mindset, and I just try to be super positive. And Jonas was like keeping me going every single day. I'm pretty sure he was miserable most of the time because I was so cranky. He's like, I can't believe I have to put up with you right now. But I just kept pushing along, and I just had to have faith and had to believe in myself. And I was just able to do that, like, one day at a time. My endurance was like the hardest thing to get back, but I was able to do it. And again, in 3 months, I got myself together and competed at classics, and then we had championships for the Olympics, and then I made the national team. And then I was like, okay, like, I can do this. We have Olympic trials in 2 weeks. I'm just going to give it my all. I got to work really hard, because even at championships, like, I did okay, but like just wasn't where I wanted to be. But everybody was struggling. As Team USA, like, we were all just kind of like struggling with COVID and injuries and different things that we had. So I wasn't alone, which was nice. But we go to Olympic trials, and I just peaked, like, hit 4 for 4 both days, placed 4th one day, 5th the second day. And it was hard because Tom, with all the politics from last Olympics, Tom, the new Olympic coach, wanted to make it fair. And so I knew, like, he's probably going to maybe take 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I placed 5th. But even though 4th and 5th, we were only like, what was it, like a half a tenth apart? Like, it was so close, so we could have gone either way. But I just remember we were back in the room waiting there while the national team and the Olympic coach were, sitting there deciding on what was going to happen. And, I get that feeling again. I'm like, am I going to be put alternate? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, because with this Olympics, they have the 4-man team, and then they did 2 event specialists. So they didn't do just a 5-man team. And so when I first came back to train, I was like, so Tom, is there any way I can do the event specialist spot where I only do 2 events? Because that's what I specialize in, is floor and vault. Yeah. And he's like, well, we really want you for team because Jade Carey is doing floor and vault. And so I was like, okay. And so for that other spot, they'd probably take someone for bars and beam. And so when we're sitting in that room, I'm just like, well, there's no way I'm getting the individual spot, and I don't know if he's going to take me because I was 5th. And so they come in, they start naming the team, you know, Simone, Suni, and then they say the fourth person, and I just like start crying because I'm like, well, I didn't make it, you know. And then he goes, MyKayla Skinner, Jade Carey, event specialist. And so I like jump up and I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, is this really happening? Like, and I was kind of like bummed because I was like, well, I wanted to be part of the team because as an event specialist, you don't get to be with the team and win the team medal. And so, and that's what I'd worked for all year. And so anyway, my coach Lisa just picks me up and she's like, who cares? You made it. Like, that's what we came here to do. And she's like, now you can do this for you. This is all about you, and you're going to go out there and you're going to give it 100%, and we're just going to enjoy the process, so we'll take it. And so I was like, okay. So we end up going over to Tokyo, and, you know, we're training, and we start prelims, and prelims is where you qualify for everything. So prelims is like the most important part of the competition where you qualify for individual, team, individual, all around. And so I knew like everything was on the line. So like the stress and the pressure just, it's like way more than ever. And so we start on floor and I go out there and I hit the best floor routine of my life. Like it was just like incredible. And I remember like running off the floor. Simone's like, you're an Olympian, it's official. Like you competed your first event, you're an Olympian. And I was just like so excited. And then I saw the scores come up, and in the Olympics, they take the top 8 for individual events, and only 2 per country can make it out of the top 8. So Simone's already good at floor and vault, and so is Jade, and then so am I. So it's like out of the 3 of us, only 2 of us can make it. And so I look up the scores, and it was Jade and Simone. And so I was like, that's okay. Like, I've been doing really good on vault, so like I got this. And so we go over to vault, and I went before Jade, and so I just like put so much pressure on myself. So like I made my vaults, but they just like weren't very good. And so I just remember like walking down, then Jade goes and does her 2 vaults and she hit them, and the scores come up and it was Simone and Jade. And so I just remember like looking at my coach Lisa and I said like, are you serious? Like, does this really have to happen right now? You know, I'm like, I don't think I can finish the meet. I was so devastated because I'm like, I've worked so hard for this, and like this was not the time for this to happen. And so I'm like sitting in the corner and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I just can't do it. I can't do it. Like, I just can't finish the meet. Like, it's over. And it's not over, you know, like, yeah, I might not get an Olympic medal, but like I still got to finish. And so I like pulled myself together and I was like, I have to be positive for the rest of the girls. I can't have any negative energy. And so I just was so mad that like by the time we got to bars, like I wasn't even stressed. I wasn't nervous. I was just like, I'm going to do this. And I like walk up and I hit the best bar routine of my life. And I'm like, man, maybe I shouldn't stress because then I can nail the best routine ever. And so I was like, okay, I got this. Like, it's okay. And so we go to beam, and I was last up on beam in the whole entire meet. And so that was kind of nerve-wracking. So even though we didn't like have, you know, millions of people in the crowd, it was like still nerve-wracking because all the gymnasts were watching and I was the last one to go. And beam's like so super stressful. I hate competing beam, but I just was really calm and I went up there and I believed in myself. I was like, just do what you do in the gym. Nailed the best routine. Like the Olympics was probably my best meet, like coming back into elite, and it was just like a way to go out. And even though like I didn't qualify for anything, just to like see everybody being so proud of me, all the text messages, like you did that, like you're an Olympian, that's like the most important thing, like we're so proud of you no matter what. And so like I took that in and I was like, you know what, like I wasn't an alternate, I got to compete, I hit all 4 events, like that's amazing, you know. I'm an Olympian. And so I remember going back to my room that night and I just started bawling. Like I got down on my knees and I was just praying, like, why does this have to happen again? Like after all the trials I've been through, like why do I have to keep going through this? And so I just had this overwhelming feeling that said like, it's not over yet. And of course I'm like, it's over, you know, like duh. And so I remember that night Simone had texted me. And she says, oh no, this hasn't happened yet. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. So anyway, that night I talked to my coach Lisa and I didn't want to stay for the rest of the week. And so we talked to Tom and he says, you know what, you guys can go home and we'll get you a flight. And I said, I really want to stay for team finals and support the girls. So team finals was like 2 days later, and we go, and Jade and I are sitting in the stands, we're watching the competition, and vault was the first event. Simone goes and competes. She was last up, and gets the twisties. She did a 1.5 instead of a 2.5 on vault. And Jade and I just look at each other and we're like, did that seriously just happen? Like that Simone, no, like she's too good for that, you know? Like what is going on? So Jade and I were just like so starstruck that we're like, we have to get out of the arena. We need to go get water. So we went down into this little room. We got some water. And then my coach Lisa texts me and says, MyKayla, they're changing your flight. You're staying. So then I look at Jade and I'm like, you're kidding, right? I was like, I don't want to compete again. Because I was just like so over it. Like I finally was like at terms with everything after a couple of days. And I was like, I've been through it. I've been through these trials. So I feel like going through those so many times just helped me be like, it's okay. Like I came here to do what I did. And I was just so blessed with all the opportunities I had. I was like, it's okay. Like there's so much more to life than just gymnastics. And so anyway, we go back into the stands and we, you know, they're talking to us like you get to stay. And Simone, like I guess, had told Cecile, like, text them right now up in the stands and tell them that MyKayla needs to stay. And so anyway, I don't know why, but Simone was just so nice with everything. Like, could you imagine like not be able to compete in other events when you qualified for everything and not taking home all those medals? And it was just crazy when we got to our rooms that night and she texted me and she says, you know what, MyKayla, there's no one else I'd rather go in for vault for me than you. And then at like the same time I was kind of like, she better not be kidding, because I know they're gonna probably go make her train and see what she can do. But after vault, I think she was just like, I cannot do vault because that's what she got the twisties on. And so no one really knew until 24 hours before prelims because they couldn't announce anything. But I kind of had known at that point that I was going in for vault, and then 24 hours up they announced it and they're like, you're going in, you get to compete vault. And so it was vault finals day, and we got to compete, and I think I was first up on vault, which was really nerve-wracking because there was 8 girls, and so I'm like, that can either be good or bad. But I went up there and nailed 2 vaults, and I was sitting there just like watching each score go by, and I was like, this is so nerve-wracking, and I held it into second place, and I got to take home the silver medal. So it was just like, it was so cool. I think like being able to like show the world that like by not giving up, and like even though what happened, like things still happen to us, you know, and it's like you just got to persevere and like keep going. And it was really hard too because I'd went gluten-free that year because of inflammation and stuff. It can help with that. And after I didn't make anything, I was sitting there eating pasta and candy, and then they're like, okay, you got to compete. So I had to like change my mindset, go to bed early. But it was just crazy because when I talked to my mom, like my whole family was like, MyKayla, like why do you want to go home? Just stay. You don't know what can happen. And I'm like, but it's going to be fine. So it was just like, everybody just like had this feeling like there was still something to come from it. And so just the way everything that happened in my story, and it was just so cool to prove to the world, like anything is possible. You just can't give up. So it was just a dream come true. And it was just seriously like, it was so cool. One thing to like, you know, represent Team USA, but to like go out there and do that for myself. So it was really
incredible.
cool.
You shared with us last when we talked to you last week about your mom. She said she felt you should stay. But you told us about that you knelt down and had a bit of a prayer and an answer. Can you share just a little bit of that with us too?
Yeah. So, I'm like, where should I start? So there was like a really rough time, kind of at the beginning of elite gymnastics. I was competing at the Nastia Cup, and once again, a lot of politics and just unfairness, and they had cheated with the scores. And anyway, Jordan Weber was competing in the American Cup, which was an elite meet, and the Nastia Cup was a JO meet, but a lot of elite gymnasts that were like kind of starting the program competed in it. And my mom was just like, she was just really frustrated, you know, like as the meet was going on, she's like, I just can't believe what's going on, like this just doesn't seem right, because my scores were like getting all jumbled, and like I was doing really high difficulty, and like I was ahead like the whole like first 2 rotations, and Jordan Weber's teammate was in the Nastia Cup. And so they thought by letting Jordan Weber's teammate win that it would be like a precursor to having Jordan Weber win the American Cup. And so when all this happened, we like walk out onto the floor, and they pulled out the first 3 finishers in the meet. And it was like, I was either in second or third, and they call all of our names, the lights are dimmed, and we're out on the floor, and then they end up pulling me off the floor because they got the order wrong. So even though like they had changed the scores, they were still hoping that I was going to end up in second, but they had messed it up so badly that I didn't even end up second. And so that night, Marta Caroli, that was the Olympic coach at the time, she pulled Lisa into her office and said, I'm so sorry with what happened. This is what happened. We did this, and you know, gymnastics is political. It's not going to be fair, but we know Michaela's amazing, and we want her to start coming to national team camps, and you know, it's going to be a long journey, but if she's willing to do it, like, we're ready to take her. And so my coach, you know, came and told us what had happened, and my mom was just like, you know what, like, this is going to be a hard journey, but like, if you're willing to do it, like, you just need to go home, you need to pray about it, and if this is something you want to do, like, I'm going to be here to support you 100%. And I think that was the best thing about my mom is, like, yeah, she pushed me because, like, she kind of had to, because otherwise I would have just gave up. But at the same time, like, she let me choose, which I think was the best part. She wasn't too hard on me. Like, she let me pick what I wanted to do, and she was there to support me no matter what. And I just remember going and getting down on my knees, and I was praying, and I just felt like, you know what, like, this is what you need to do. And in the church, we get patriarchal blessings, and so by having that to help guide me and all the different things that I had, prayer is really huge for me. I love praying and reading the scriptures, and just kind of having that moment was just like, this is what you got to do. Like, this is what it's going to take. It's going to be hard, and I just kept pushing through it. So even though, like, I went through all those trials and all those things, like, I think it made me a better person because of it. I feel like without those, like, I wouldn't have been able to get through those without it. So that was just a really cool experience for me, and my mom let me decide for myself, which I think is awesome, you know. So I just was super grateful that I continued to do it, because if I hadn't, like, I wouldn't have had all these cool opportunities.
So Jonas, you show up in 2019, well, probably a little sooner than that.
Yeah.
But tell us about what it's like to support a spouse going through being an Olympian. Tell us what that's like, being a spectator of that.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. I mean, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me was I was able to learn a lot just watching her go through it, because, you know, I think most people don't really understand, like, how much it takes to compete at that high of a level. I kind of thought, oh, you know, you're good at gymnastics, so that'll be easy, right? So it was cool for me to watch and see, like, how much she trained and how hard she worked, and then how many problems she had. And people didn't realize that she was going to like 3 different physical therapists, you know, to keep stuff under control. And so it was cool for me to see that perseverance and grit, and, you know, the never give upness.
How has having a faith in Christ helped the two of you go through this, and even your marriage? You've been married for how long now? 3 years?
Almost 3 years, yeah.
How has that helped you?
It's helped a lot. I think just having faith and just knowing that, you know, there is God, He cares about us, gives us perspective, especially when things are rough. You know, we know that we have someone to turn to, and we know that, you know, we both have the same faith, right? And we believe the same things. So that kind of helps us together just as a couple. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we would have been in a much worse spot without it, because we always had that to kind of anchor us.
Mm-hmm.
Has it helped you in the process too of being Olympian?
Oh yeah, so many ways. I feel like, you know, God was right there with me through the whole process. You know, like, that little small voice, having the Spirit was just, it was incredible. And I mean, my whole family was praying, and they fasted for us, and it was just, I could feel the Spirit so strong, and it definitely strengthened my testimony more than it ever has. And so I think I needed that experience as well, you know. So I think we've been super blessed, and I'm super grateful for the church and for everything that we've been through and the struggles that we've had, but we've been able to get through it. So it's been really good.
We have a question here. It just says, MyKayla, you never shy away from talking about your beliefs on your YouTube and Instagram. Can you share a few stories on how living your values has helped you? I know you shared one with us about Simone defending your beliefs.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is, because I feel like, you know, living in Arizona and Utah, there's a lot of members of the church. And so, like, growing up in gymnastics, it was always easy to have people have the same, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Same standards as me. And so that was just kind of always easier for me. But you know, being in elite gymnastics, I was like the only one that was a member of the church, and so it was really cool because I could kind of be that role model for the other girls and to stick up for them. And you know, some of the other girls don't drink and some of them do. When we would go to Worlds, you could be 18 and drink in those other countries, and so usually there's like a banquet at the end of World Championships, and so all the athletes are drinking and partying. And so there's this one gymnast that had came up and he was like, hey, give us, you know, 3 shots. I was with Simone, and Simone's like, no, you can't give her that. She doesn't drink alcohol, you know. And so it's just really cool to see the growth that we've had over the years, because I feel like when I was younger, we would go to Worlds and stuff, it was kind of more like, MyKayla, just drink, you know what I mean? And I just always stuck up for myself. I'm like, I don't do that, and I choose not to do that, and that's okay. And so it's really cool to see how she like stuck up for me and was like, no, she can't have that, it's okay, you know. And so just really cool experiences like that. And I think it's just really awesome to be able to like go through all those trials and to be able to like stick up for it, you know, and not cave into doing things that I didn't want to do, and not letting people peer pressure me into doing those. I feel like just sticking up for yourself, I feel like people appreciate it, you know. And so even though it might be scary and people might tempt you to do things you don't want to do, just say no. It's just, the easy answer is no, I don't need to, I don't want to, and people are still going to love you no matter what.
I love that.
That's a great answer.
That's beautiful.
What would you say to youth who have the dream to be an Olympian? Like, what would you tell them?
I feel like these questions are always the hardest because sports are just hard. Yeah. But I feel like, you know, like I said, like I didn't always like gymnastics growing up. It was brutal, it was hard, but to get to where you need to be, you got to get through those hard days, and you got to get through those struggles and challenges. And going through those failures just made me stronger. You know, we're gonna make mistakes, like that's just part of life. We're human, we're gonna go through those challenges, and even though we fall, we get back down, we get back up again, you know. So I just think to keep going, believe in yourself, have confidence, and even if you don't make the Olympics, like you still did something so amazing. You should be so proud of yourself. And I think a big thing that helped me is when I started getting down and I was negative, I actually had like a mental trainer that I was talking to going into the last year training for the Olympics, and I kind of tend to have like a bad attitude sometimes. I think we all do, and we get tired, and you know, we just don't want to go into the gym that day. And one thing that helped is every time I walked up to the door and I opened it before I went in, I changed my attitude. So I was like, I'm going to do awesome today. Today's going to be a great day. And I just felt happier. I was just more motivated instead of being like, oh, I have all these routines, it's going to be really hard, you know. So I just changed my mindset, and it just made the whole day so much better. And even if an event was hard that day, I was like, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to have one bad event, to have one bad day, but I'm going to go in the next day and try even harder. So just never give up. That was my big thing, never giving up, and it was all able to work out. So
sounds like you had a real gift to just be able to, okay, I'm going to choose to be happy.
Yes.
Despite everything else, I'm just going to choose.
It's hard. It's
happy.
So hard, but I feel like that's kind of what it takes. You got to have the grit to persevere through it, and just to build that confidence in yourself, you know.
I'm just watching as you tell these stories, watching Jonas just agree with everything you say. You seem like you just have been just such a support. When did you two meet?
I tried.
How did you meet? And when in the process did you meet MyKayla?
So we met, it was,
My sophomore year of college, maybe?
Yeah, about 5 years ago.
Okay. I
had a friend from high school who became friends with MyKayla at the U. And she told MyKayla, hey, I need to introduce you to this guy. And there was another friend that I had at BYU, which is the school I was going to at the time, that also MyKayla knew. So we had like 2 mutual friends. And so it kind of just, that's kind of how we met, and we started hanging out. And
she was taking you away.
And
I was like, no.
But I didn't want anything to come of it at first because we were an hour away.
Mm-hmm. And you just came home from your mission. So I think he was
I just spent 2 years as a missionary, And so I wanted to have time to, date around, hang out with friends. I didn't want to get locked down. And she seemed really cool. And so I'm thinking, if I hang out with her, I'll probably like her. And then I'll probably want. So I put it off as long as I could.
I was so short. I was sitting in the library with my friend Emma that knew him. And he's like, hey, I'm going to be in Bountiful because his family lives there. And so he met us at the U in the library. And he comes walking in, and I'm like, you're kidding. He is not that tall. Like, I was telling Emma, I'm like, why didn't you tell me he was that tall? She's like, he must have grown a lot on his mission. And so I was like, I can't stand up. He's going to make fun of me. But I guess they looked me up before he came, so he knew I was short.
So how tall are you?
I'm 6'7".
6'7", and
5
you are
foot.
5 foot.
That is a little bit.
Yeah.
You two are adorable.
That's awesome.
We're hoping our kids end up.
Right in the middle.
We'll probably have tall girls and short boys.
Yeah, we'll see.
So you met, that would have been 2017.
Yeah,
so
17.
just after. So you've gone back to college,
Mm-hmm.
and then so you were there as you decided to make all this transition back to
he was
Olympics.
there through it all.
Wow.
Because what MyKayla didn't mention is she, because everyone asked her, like, oh, are you gonna go back for the next Olympics? Like I asked her that. I was like, probably one of my first questions. I don't know. And she would always she didn't like talking about it. And I think it's because she knew like deep down that she did want to go back, but she'd never talk about it. And then that was sophomore year, and then it was junior year the next year. Still didn't want to talk about it, but as it got closer to the end of the year, then she would finally be like, I'll think about it. Or like, we'll see. And so I was able to see her accept that she had that fire inside of her that it was a goal, she was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
How did that feel watching her make that vault?
That felt really good. The worst part was probably Olympic trials, just because I was so stressed. And then when she was in Tokyo, it was like 3 a.m. our time. They didn't let me go, and so that was kind of a bummer. But yeah, so it felt so good because and that whole week was a roller coaster because. So I was working in D.C. at the time, and after prelims, she said, well, hey, I'm going home because I didn't make any finals. I got a flight home.
He was so excited.
Yeah, because
we're like, yeah, I can go home.
Yeah, because I was kind of excited. Cool, I can leave work early, right? And then, of course, all that happened, and so it was roller coaster. Obviously way more for her, but for me, vicariously through her, but also for me because I had to change my flight, and then I had to change my work plans, and I had a whole team that I was working with, and so it was just such a roller coaster. So it felt so good to finally sit down and watch vault finals, 4 a.m. whenever it was, and then see her hit her vaults.
His friends were all up too. They have videos.
Yeah, we had a watch party.
Really cool, yeah.
A bunch of my coworkers and friends, so we all stayed up
screaming
late
through the computer.
Yeah, so that was a fun moment.
Cool. Did you know anything about gymnastics before you met MyKayla?
He thought it was
No, yeah, I thought it was I knew it was different from cheerleading, but all I knew about gymnastics was that every 4 years I would see girls do flips.
Have you ever tried the vault?
I have.
He has. There's a whole YouTube
we have a few
video.
YouTube videos.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, speaking of YouTube, we actually saw on YouTube that you competed in the American Ninja Warrior.
Yep. I did. That was fun. It was, the story there was MyKayla had always wanted to do it, and then I had seen the TV show growing up, and always thought it was cool, but I never thought I'd have the opportunity to do so. And then leading up to the Olympics, we were talking to an agent, and she was saying, hey, after you two should both do it. And so I thought, heck yeah, I'd love to do it. And the Olympics happen, and then MyKayla goes on tour, and she comes back, and I'm like, hey, can we start training for American Ninja Warrior? Because I had found a gym. It's like 5 minutes from where we live. I had a coach. His name's Wally. So I was training with Wally, and I'm like, hey, MyKayla, can you start training? Can we do this? And she says, no, I'm retired. I'm good. She's like, I don't want to go to any other gym ever again. So I was just training by myself, and then they called me a few times to ask if MyKayla would do it. She always said no.
Jonas gets the call, and they're like, hey, you made the show. And then they're like, so can MyKayla do it?
Yeah.
I said no. Then they call again, we're doing a couples edition. Does MyKayla do it? I said no. Jonas says, yeah, she'll do it. So it was just like, seriously? What did you get me into?
Yeah,
It was
so
torture. It was fun, but it was torture.
it was fun for me because I
was
trained.
scary.
Michaela still didn't want to train, so she came to the gym maybe like 4 times.
I did 8 times.
8 times, sorry. Yeah, so, but it was fun. It was a fun experience.
I just love how real you are. It's like, I hate going to the gym, and yet you still win.
I know.
Every time.
I'm just
You
competitive.
spent
Yeah.
so many hours in a gym.
I know. I'm just competitive though. You put me up to something, and I just like I can't take losing. Like it just gets bad.
So I have a question here from one of the viewers. It says, many youth and young adults seem to struggle thinking it is either or between professional goals and continuing to do the things that build your faith, like in the church. What advice would you have for someone in that situation? Can you do both?
You could do both for sure. I mean, it was hard for me. My coach did let me leave on Wednesdays to go to Young Women, so I got to leave gym a little bit early, so she let me do that, which was really nice. But like, I never got to go to girls camp and do EFY. I didn't get to do all those things that I really wish I could have done. But honestly, I feel like if you can, like, yeah, you need to be in the gym or whatever sport you're doing, but like, just take a day, take a break, take them out, let them do it. Like, they're a kid. You know, I wish I would have been able to do more of that. I mean, gymnastics was just super intense, and we had Marta Caroli at the time, so it was like, you know, our coaches could never let us have a day. But now that gymnastics has evolved a little bit, and, you know, the Larry Nassar scandal and all the things that have happened, USA Gymnastics, I feel like has been a little bit more easier going in some ways. So I think, you know, take the day, take the rest. Go do it. I just wish that I could have done more stuff and lived my childhood a little bit, but I think you can still do both, you know. I mean, even when I was traveling for gymnastics and even being on the Utah gymnastics team, there was a couple of other girls that were LDS, and so we would sit there and we would like read the scriptures on Sunday or have a little lesson, or we would watch conference like as we're getting ready for the meet, doing our hair and makeup. So we would like try to make time for it as much as we could, but other than that, I mean, take your scriptures with you, say your prayers. You can still do it even if you're not always there to make the time for it, you know, by going to church or activities and all the things. But you can definitely do both. I did it, and it's been the best thing to ever happen to me. So
The faith is internal. It comes
Yes,
with you wherever
yeah.
you go. Yeah, I love that. Here's another question. Being in a spotlight and having so many people know who you are, how do you use your platform to bring the world the blessings that come from your faith?
So it is kind of hard. I mean, especially with social media these days, it's hard. Like, it's even hard for me, you know, looking at all the stuff, and, you know, I always get down on myself, but I'm like, none of that stuff matters. Like, why do we care so much, you know? Like, none of that stuff's important. And for me, I've just tried looking at it like, you know, being that good role model, being that good example for others, and just trying to do the best that I can do, and hopefully that others can see that and be like, wow, you know, like, if she's doing it, I can do it too. But just trying to be positive most of the time. I mean, you're always going to get that negativity, but I just try to ignore it and just focus on myself and what makes me happy. And we also, you know, have a YouTube channel. So for a while we were like documenting my journey, letting people see like all the behind the scenes stuff of like what it went through, because no one knows, you know, no one gets to see that. So it was really cool to be able to like talk about our religious views and talk about different things and what we believe in, and kind of share that with others, and, you know, just trying to be that good example. That's, you know, that's really all we can do. You know, life's hard. You know, kids are going through such struggles and trials, and I just hope that I can help them get through it, because I've lived it, I've done it, and I've been able to persevere through it. And so I just hope that I can, you know, spread my story and share it with others. You know, we're, you know, coming out, we're making a book, so we've been like kind of starting the process of that. And so I hope that, you know, I can share my stories through that and just let people know that as long as you have faith, you can get through anything. It's going to be hard, but you can do it.
And you started a podcast. Tell us
We
briefly
started
about that.
a podcast too. So it's actually with Sean Johnson and Andrew's company. So Sean Johnson was in the 2008 Olympics, and they started the Couples Things podcast, and then they've just let other couples and people kind of join in on their podcast. And so we've been working through them, and we decided to do a podcast that's called Agree to Disagree with Michaela and Jonas. So just talking about life, anything. People can send in questions. We do things like that, and then we just talk about things that we agree on, what we don't agree on, but how our marriage still works. You know, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to agree with everything. And we get a lot of stuff about gymnastics and just people getting to know us better. So it's been really fun.
I love that.
Well, I think this has been wonderful. This is a really good question to end off with. I love this question. It says, Michaela, do you feel like you would have been able to make it through the Olympics without the connection you've had with your Heavenly Father, with Christ?
You know, it's so hard to say because like I've grown up in the church and I've always had it, but I feel like definitely if I didn't have it, I would feel so lost. You know, both of my parents were converts of the church, and just to see their growth and their strength and the trials that they've been through and how they've been able to get through them with Christ, you know, so like I don't think I would have been able to do it. I think every step of the way it's been because of him helping me get there, leading me. And I think, you know, some people always think like, you know, everything's just straightforward in life, but it's not. Like you could pick this way or you can pick that way, and he knows you better than anybody else, and he's going to help you get through whatever path you choose. So, you know, just to pray about it, figure out what's best for you, and he's going to help you get there so you can succeed, which I think is the greatest blessing to have. So.
Thank you. I do have to ask this one question.
Okay, which one? That was great, Wendy. But
that was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and the hope and peace that you felt. But this is a little, maybe a little more entertaining on the lighter side. It says, what is your favorite sport other than gymnastics?
Oh.
Your favorite sport probably isn't even gymnastics. All I heard for 2 years straight was I hate gymnastics.
Honest, I mean, I've really gotten into basketball, but I've always really loved ice skating and diving.
Okay.
Those have been like my two favorites. When I was younger, when we lived in Utah, my mom would just take us ice skating all the time for our birthdays and stuff, and I actually got like pretty good at it. And then the lady at the ice skating rink would be like, can you please have MyKayla like join our club team? But I was in gymnastics, and so I liked that better than ice skating. But if there's another sport I could do, it'd probably be ice skating, but I'm not flexible. So, like, I don't know how well that would have turned out. But
Well, thank you for spending the time with us. This has been real wonderful. You really are an inspiration, both of you. And MyKayla, this has been a real joy to be able to visit with you and feel of your enthusiasm and just the drive you bring. I know this has touched some people.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your experiences with prayer and your journeys down your road to hope and peace.
thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight on another edition of Why I Believe.